Hey, what's going on YouTube? Alabama Reloader here. So today's video, just a quick update on where we stand with the 300 Blackout project. If you'll recall, I picked up a Mossberg, I believe it's the MVP. I don't know if they call it the Mossberg Patriot MVP model or what, but it's a bolt action rifle chambered in 300 Blackout. Pretty slick little handy rifle. It's got synthetic stock, so it's pretty lightweight. Which I do like that over the Howa 1500 mini action that I had previously, chambered in 300 Blackout. That one, it was a little bit heavier because it had that Hogue stock on it, and I'm sure you could swap that out with something else, make it a little bit lighter weight. But the Mossberg comes with some really nice fiber optic, comes with a really nice fiber optic front post for iron sights. So it's got a pretty good set of iron sights on it if you just wanted to use those instead of putting an optic on it, which I put a Vortex Crossfire 2 2 to 7 by I think 32 or 33 millimeter scope on it, and I messed up and I ordered the Rimfire edition of that scope, a Rimfire model of that scope. I think the parallax is set to like 50 yards, which isn't really that big of a deal because this is going to be a short range hunting setup anyway. But I am not impressed with that scope at all. I've been taking some pictures because I've actually got 3 different 2 to 7 optics, 2 to 7 power optics. I've got 3 different ones, and just putting them side by side, that Vortex, in my opinion, is the bottom of the barrel out of the 3 that I have. And one of them is, I don't want to really dive into that. This is more about 300 Blackout, but for comparison's sake, one is a Leupold 2 to 7 by 33 model. And then, so that's the most expensive one out of the 3. And then I've got the Vortex Crossfire 2. That's sort of next in line price-wise. And then the cheapest one that I have, it's the Hawk Vantage 2 to 7. By 32, and I'll take the Hawk over that Vortex all day long, simply because of the size of the reticle and the crosshairs. It blows my mind how thick the crosshairs are on that Vortex Crossfire 2. It was just unbelievable when I looked through it, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But whatever. I may try to do a video on that comparison at some point, but we're talking about these guys. So what I did, I've got 50 pieces of Sig Sauer 300 Blackout brass. I bought it new, and then just wanted to pretty much run, you know, those rounds through the rifle. So I actually used the Hornady. I used these guys, the 110 V Max. That's what I loaded those 50 rounds up with. Went out, shot everything just to somewhat break in the barrel and put 50 rounds down it before I started in on messing with these guys. These are going to be what we use to hunt with. For, you know, you go and you see these things on YouTube and ballistic gel videos and all that. I mean, these things are just, yeah, these are the bee's knees when it comes to 300 Blackout, supposedly. So pretty wicked looking. Got that polymer tip on there. So they've got a 120 grain version of this as well, but I went with the 110s. And that's what this target is. This is of the 110s. I loaded up some 5-shot groups. Now, the load data with this is actually kind of weird because I'm using Ramshot Enforcer. And if you look in the Barnes, if you look in the only manual, let's see what, yeah, number 4. So I think this is their latest edition. The number 4 is the latest edition. It doesn't have 300 Blackout data in it, but if you go and look online, they've got a whole lot more load data than what they have in that 4th edition. And so you go in there and they've got load data for this bullet with Ramshot Enforcer. And according to Barnes, the max charge is 17.1 grains, loaded at 2.250 cartridge overall length. And then, so I was like, all right, well, I'll roll with that. Let me go and just double check Hodgdon's website real quick. So I ran over there, looked at their load data, because they now own Western Powders, who produce the Ramshot brand, Ramshot and Western Powders and all that. They own all that now, so they have load data for it on their website. And they were showing with this same bullet, the Barnes 110 with Ramshot Enforcer, they showed a max charge of 19 grains. So 1.9 grain difference in max charge, and they showed the starting charge of 17.1 is what Hodgdon shows. That was the max charge of what Barnes put in their manual, and Barnes said it was a compressed load. If you go and look at their data, and so I thought that was kind of odd. That's a pretty big discrepancy between. Typically, you don't see that large of a discrepancy in load data from using that exact. I mean, same bullet, same overall length, in both cases. And so, yeah, I found that to be odd. But what I did is I loaded up. I went ahead and loaded up 5 rounds at 19 grains. I used Hodgdon's max, and I came out and I seated them. Ended up going with 2.275, so 25 thousandths longer than what they recommend, or as far as the cartridge overall length that Hodgdon shows and Barnes shows. And I just wanted to check and make sure I could even seat the bullets, right? Because I was a little worried about the load being super compressed, which it wasn't. I had no issues whatsoever. So then I was like, okay, well then we'll just test it out. And so then I just worked backwards in 2/10. So that's 18.8, 18.6, 18.4, and 18.2. So that's what we went with. You could tell, obviously, it hates 18.2. And then it just kind of trended towards tightening up. The higher we went in charge weight, it did open up just a little bit at 18.8 and then 19. It's not as tight as it was here at 18.6. That looks really good. You've got some vertical stuff. It still came in like just over an inch because of that. But you can see the difference, right? We're trending in the right direction. Our point of impact, I made adjustments on that. I dropped it down, and then we kept hitting to the right. So then on this last group, I made an adjustment left. So that's where that is. So, but our point of impact was pretty consistent once we came down a little bit there. And then those next 3 groups. And so not too bad. I mean, for the purposes, the hunting purposes of what I'm trying to accomplish, this is more than sufficient accuracy. I think these ended up measuring, over an inch on these last 2 here, that one, the 18.8 and 19. So we'll probably look at loading up maybe, 18.6, 18.8, somewhere in this range. We might, mess with some seating depth. Probably not really, to be honest with you, just because, I've only got 50 of these, and I've already burned up half the box just in doing this test with 1 powder. So I don't really want to just waste a whole lot of these. These are not cheap. And so I really just want to kind of hang on to a few of them to load up and keep as my hunting ammo for the season. But yeah, that's really it. That's, not really much to it on this one. This was a short and sweet kind of video as far as pretty straightforward stuff. I did find it interesting that the load data, that there is such a large discrepancy between what Barnes says and what Hodgdon says. I thought that was kind of odd. So yeah, I don't really know what to make of that, but I went up and I had 0 pressure issues, right? I had really no concerns or worries about pressure whatsoever. So I just thought that was very odd. But that's what we got with Ramshot Enforcer. That's probably the powder that I'll use moving forward, going into the hunting season. This shows that it was supposed to get, I think, like 2,200 feet per second at 19 grains. We'll actually have to test that because I think Barnes actually showed 2,200 feet per second with their 17.1 grain load. Right, so again, there's that discrepancy that we need to go test out. So I need to load some of these back up. Probably load them at that 18.6 grain charge, since that was such a good shooter. Either that or 18.7, something like that. Because this is still fine, right? These last 3 groups are more than sufficient for what we need to do. And then go shoot some over the chronograph and see what we get. So, but that's it. That's where I'm going to leave you guys. Happy Labor Day to everybody. This is coming out on Monday, Labor Day here in the U.S. I hope you're enjoying your time off with family and friends, man. Just I hope you take time to really appreciate what this day means and just kind of rest and recharge, right? Get ready to go into the work week starting tomorrow on Tuesday. But yeah, so that's it. That's where I'm going to leave you guys. Hope y'all have a good one. We'll catch you next time.